Hey, Reddit. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but after what happened last weekend, I need to get it off my chest. My name is Rachel, 26F, and what was supposed to be a joyful birthday celebration turned into something I'll never forget, and not in a good way. It all started when my sister Emily, 34F, invited the whole family over for her son Jake's 7th birthday party. Emily has always been the golden child in our family. She married rich, lives in a huge house, and seems to enjoy reminding the rest of us how much better her life is. Normally, I don't get too involved in her drama, but this time, things got personal. I have a son, Ethan 6M, who unfortunately has a weak immune system due to a chronic condition. He catches colds easily, so I'm always extra cautious with him, especially in the winter months. When Emily invited us, I made it very clear that we'd love to come, but Ethan would need a warm place to sit and rest if he started feeling unwell. She assured me it wouldn't be a problem. I should have known better. The party was at Emily's massive house, a 3-story suburban mansion with a finished basement that she proudly calls a guest entertainment lounge. The second we walked in, I could already feel the tension. Emily barely greeted us, too busy showing off her expensive decorations to other guests. My parents were there, smiling as always, pretending Emily wasn't their obvious favorite. Everything seemed fine at first. Ethan was excited to see his cousins, and I was relieved that he seemed okay despite the chilly weather. But about an hour in, he tugged on my sleeve and whispered, "Mom, I feel cold." That's when things started going downhill. I found Emily near the kitchen and quietly asked if there was a warm room where Ethan could sit for a bit. She rolled her eyes and said, "Just put him in the basement. There's a couch down there." I hesitated. "Is it warm enough?" "He gets sick easily." She sighed dramatically. "Rachel, it's not like I'm putting him outside in the snow. The heater's on. He'll be fine." I should have listened to my gut, but with the chaos of the party, I didn't want to argue. I figured I'd check on him in a few minutes anyway. I led Ethan downstairs, and the second we stepped inside, I knew it was too cold. The so-called heater must have been barely running because the air felt damp, and I could see him shivering already. "I don't like it here, Mom," he said, pulling his little jacket tighter. I turned to go back upstairs to tell Emily this wasn't going to work. But when I tried the door, it wouldn't open. At first, I thought it was stuck. I jiggled the knob, knocked, even called out. Nothing. Then I heard laughter from upstairs. I knocked harder. "Hello? Can someone open this?" Silence. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Of course. I don't know if it was bad luck or intentional, but I couldn't call or text anyone. Ethan looked up at me, his little face pale, and I could see the fear creeping in. "Mommy, it's okay, baby," I said, forcing a smile. "We're just going to wait a second." But as the minutes passed, I started to panic. I banged on the door again. Nothing. Either no one heard me over the party, or someone didn't want to hear me. I don't know how long we were stuck down there. Maybe 20, 30 minutes? Long enough for Ethan to start coughing, his breath visible in the cold air. I wrapped him in my coat and held him close, trying to keep him warm. Then I heard footsteps. Finally, "Emily," I called out. "Open the door." It wasn't Emily. It was her husband, Mark. I heard the door unlock, and when it opened, he looked at me like I was an inconvenience. "What are you doing down here?" he asked, completely unfazed. "What am I?" "Mark, we've been locked in here. Ethan is freezing." He sighed, looking bored. "Emily told me to keep the kids upstairs. You know how she is about keeping the party organized. So you locked us in?" "I didn't know you were down here," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. Then he stepped aside like this wasn't a big deal. I didn't have time to argue. I scooped Ethan up and rushed upstairs. The second we hit the warmth of the main floor, my son burst into another coughing fit, his tiny body shaking in my arms. That's when my dad spotted us. and all hell broke loose. The moment my dad saw Ethan shivering and coughing, his entire expression changed. My dad is a quiet, reserved man, but when he gets mad, everyone listens. What the hell happened, he demanded. Emily, who was sipping wine with her friends, barely glanced over. Oh my God. Dad, lower your voice. You're embarrassing me. I wasn't holding back anymore. She locked my sick son in the basement. He was freezing down there. A few guests turned to stare. Emily's face turned red, not from guilt, but from being called out. She scoffed. Oh, for God's sake, Rachel, stop being dramatic. It was not that cold. My dad turned to Mark. Is this true? Mark hesitated. Well, the door was locked, but that was all my dad needed to hear. Emily, he said in a voice I hadn't heard since I was a kid. You're done. Her eyes widened. What does that mean? He turned to me. Take Ethan home. I'll deal with this. I didn't wait. I grabbed my coat, bundled Ethan up, and stormed out. As I was leaving, I heard Emily yelling, Dad, you can't be serious. I had no idea what he was planning, but one thing was clear. Emily had finally gone too far. And for once, she wasn't getting away with it. I drove home with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Ethan was bundled up in his car seat, wrapped in an extra blanket I kept in the back. He had finally stopped coughing, but his little face was still pale, and every few minutes he sniffled. My heart broke every time I glanced in the rearview mirror. Mom, he said in a small voice. I swallowed hard, trying to push down the anger still boiling in my chest. Yeah, baby. I don't want to go to Aunt Emily's house anymore. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. You don't have to, sweetheart. The rest of the ride was quiet, aside from Ethan's occasional coughs. When we got home, I gave him warm tea, tucked him into bed, and sat beside him until his breathing evened out. I knew I should try to sleep too, but my mind was racing. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. A message from my dad. Dad, call me when you can. I stepped out into the hallway and dialed his number. He picked up on the first ring. Rachel, he said, his voice tight. How's Ethan? He's okay now. Tired, but I think he'll be fine. Dad let out a slow breath. Good, because I just had the worst argument with Emily. That didn't surprise me. What did she say? He scoffed. She tried to play it off, said you were overreacting, that you were trying to make her look bad in front of her friends. Then she had the nerve to say it wasn't her fault if Ethan has weak lungs. I clenched my jaw. Of course she said that. Emily had always been dismissive about Ethan's health, acting like I was just too sensitive. What did you say? I asked. I told her she crossed a line, that she put her own nephew in danger for the sake of keeping her damn party organized. And when she refused to apologize, I told her I was done. I froze. What do you mean done? Dad sighed. I'm cutting her out of my will. I blinked. Dad, that's huge. I don't care, he said firmly. I've let her get away with being selfish her entire life. This was a final straw. She needs to learn there are consequences. For a moment, I was speechless. My dad had always been patient with Emily, even when she acted entitled or treated me like a second-class sibling. I never thought he'd go this far. What about Mom? I asked. Dad let out a bitter laugh. She's defending her, of course, saying I'm being too harsh, that Emily didn't mean any harm. But I told her if she wants to keep babying Emily, that's her problem. I'm done. I exhaled slowly. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he said. I just wanted you to know you're not alone in this. I'm on your side. For the first time that night, I felt something other than anger. I felt relief. Thanks, Dad. Get some rest, kiddo, he said before hanging up. I stood there for a moment, staring at my phone. My sister had spent her whole life believing she could get away with anything. But this time, she went too far. And now, she was finally facing consequences. The next morning, I woke up to a storm of messages. Emily, I can't believe you turned Dad against me. Do you even realize what you've done? Mom, Rachel called me. Your sister is very upset. Mark, Emily's husband, you need to fix this. Emily is devastated. I rolled my eyes. Oh, so now she cared? Now that she was losing money? I ignored them and focused on Ethan. He was still a little weak, but feeling better. By the afternoon, he was sitting on the couch watching cartoons, munching on crackers. Then, around 2 p.m., there was a knock at my door. I checked the peephole. Emily. I considered not answering, but I knew she'd just keep banging until my neighbors complained. I opened the door just enough to glare at her. What do you want? She pushed past me like she still had some sort of authority here. Rachel, we need to talk. I folded my arms. You mean you need to yell at me because Dad finally stopped enabling you? She turned to face me, her expression livid. You have no idea what you've done. Dad says he's taking me out of the trust fund. Do you know what that means for me? For my family? I let out a short laugh. Oh, you mean your rich husband? The one who locked me and my son in a freezing basement? Yeah, I'm sure you'll be just fine. Emily's face turned red. That's not the point. Dad has always supported both of us. No, I corrected. He's always supported you. He just realized he was rewarding your selfishness. She scoffed. This is because of your stupid sick kid, isn't it? Something inside me snapped. Get out, I said, my voice dangerously low. Oh, come on, Rachel. You're acting like I put him outside in the snow. He was fine. He was not fine. I snapped. He was shivering. He could have gotten worse. And you didn't care. You were more worried about your stupid party than your own nephew. She rolled her eyes. You're such a drama queen. I clenched my fists. You know what, Emily? This is exactly why Dad is done with you. You have never cared about anyone but yourself. Emily huffed. Fine. Be like that. But don't come crying to me when Mom takes my side. I smirked. Oh, you mean Mom? The one who's always cleaned up your messes? Yeah, she'll probably defend you. But Dad? He finally sees you for what you are. Emily's lip curled. I hate you. I smiled sweetly. Good. Now get out of my house. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I let out a shaky breath, my hands still trembling from the confrontation. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but one thing was clear. Emily's reign as a golden child was over. 2 days passed, and the fallout from Emily's meltdown was still unfolding. My mom was calling nonstop, leaving voicemails filled with guilt-tripping nonsense about how families should stick together, and Emily didn't mean it. Mark had sent another text, more aggressive this time, telling me I had ruined Emily's life and that I should be ashamed. Ashamed? For what? Protecting my kid. I ignored them all. My focus was on Ethan, who was slowly recovering. He was still coughing, but his fever had stayed down, and by the third morning, he was well enough to play with his toys again. That was all that mattered. But then my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole, expecting another unwanted visit from Emily. Instead, it was my dad. I quickly unlocked the door. Dad! He stepped inside, rubbing a hand over his face like he hadn't slept. Hey, kiddo. Mind if I sit? I led him to the couch. What's going on? He sighed. Your mother and I had a fight. A bad one. I tensed. About what? He let out a bitter chuckle. What do you think? She's furious about Emily. She said I was throwing away my own daughter and breaking up the family. I swallowed my frustration. And what did you say? I told her that Emily did that all by herself, he said. I told her I was done watching her act like a spoiled brat with no consequences. I exhaled. And Dad shook his head. She told me if I went through with cutting Emily out of the will, then maybe we needed a break. Too. I stared at him. What? He nodded. She packed a bag. Said she's going to stay at Emily's for a while. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, disappointment, but mostly exhaustion. Of course, Mom was siding with Emily. She always had. Dad, I'm sorry, I said quietly. He waved it off. Don't be. I should have stood up to Emily years ago. Your mother's enabling has made her worse, and I won't be part of it anymore. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he turned to me. Rachel, I need to ask you something. I hesitated. What is it? He sighed. I'm changing my will. I don't want Emily getting a cent of what I leave behind, but I need to name someone else to handle things. Someone responsible. I blinked. You mean? I want it to be you. I felt my throat tighten. Dad, are you sure? More sure than I've ever been, he said firmly. Emily doesn't deserve it. She's never cared about anything but herself. And I want to make sure you and Ethan are taken care of. I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. Okay. He smiled tiredly. Thank you. As he got up to leave, he glanced toward Ethan, who was happily playing on the floor. Tell him I'll visit soon, okay? I will. When he left, I sat on the couch, staring at my phone. Mom was at Emily's. Lines had been drawn, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to be on the opposite side. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. Emily, you think you've won? Just wait. I rolled my eyes. Whatever she was planning, I'd be ready. I knew Emily wouldn't go down quietly. That text, just wait, was a promise, not a threat. She'd always been the type to escalate when things didn't go her way. But what I didn't expect was just how low she was willing to go. The next morning, I woke up to a missed call from an unknown number. I ignored it until I saw the voicemail notification. My stomach twisted as I played it. Hello, this is Diane from Child Protective Services. We received an anonymous report about concerns regarding the well-being of Ethan. We need to schedule a home visit as soon as possible. Please call back at your earliest convenience. I sat frozen, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. CPS? Someone had called CPS on me? No, not someone. Emily. I grabbed my phone and immediately dialed the number. The woman answered after 2 rings, her voice calm and professional. I forced myself to sound composed, even though my hands were shaking. Yes, hello? This is Rachel. I just got a voicemail about my son. Yes, she said. We received a report that your child has been exposed to unsafe conditions, including medical neglect. We'll need to conduct a home visit to assess the situation. I let out a breath, trying to steady my voice. That report is false. My son has a chronic condition, and I take every precaution for his health. This is retaliation. I know exactly who made that call. She sighed, like she had heard this 1,000 times before. Unfortunately, we do have to follow up on all reports. I can schedule a visit for tomorrow afternoon. Is that okay? I had no choice. Yes, that's fine. When I hung up, my hands were still trembling. My sister, the woman who locked my child in a freezing basement, had the audacity to report me? I grabbed my phone again and texted Emily. Me. You really think CPS is going to side with you after what you did? Emily. No idea what you're talking about. Maybe you should take better care of your kid. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I called my dad. He picked up almost immediately. Hey, kiddo, he said. Everything okay? No, I said through clenched teeth. Emily called CPS on me. Silence. Then a low, furious breath. She what? She reported me for neglect, I said. They're coming for a visit tomorrow. That's it, he said, his voice shaking with rage. I'm done. I mean really done. Dad, She's trying to ruin my life. She won't, he said. I'll make sure of it. I wasn't sure what he meant, but I knew one thing. Emily had made her final mistake. The CPS visit went as expected. The social worker came in, polite but serious, and asked to see Ethan. He was curled up on the couch watching cartoons, completely fine. She asked him a few gentle questions, checked the house, and made notes. By the end of the visit, she gave me a small smile. I don't see any concerns here, she said. It's unfortunate how often false reports are used to settle personal conflicts. I'll be closing this case. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. She handed me a card. If anything like this happens again, let us know. We take false reports seriously. As soon as she left, I called my dad again. Everything's fine, I said. They're closing the case. Good, he said, because I just finished something. What? He let out a deep breath. I met with my lawyer this morning. I finalized everything. Emily isn't just out of the trust fund. She's out of my will, my accounts, everything. I was stunned. Dad, she's getting nothing, he said firmly. And I let her know that. She blew up, of course, screamed about how I was abandoning her. But I told her she made her choice when she went after you. I pressed a hand to my forehead. What did she say? She said she'd never forgive me, he said. I told her I could live with that. I exhaled slowly. Emily had finally hit the wall she'd been speeding toward for years. No more favoritism. No more enabling. She had finally faced a consequence she couldn't manipulate her way out of. The next day, she sent one last text. Emily, you've turned Dad against me. You stole everything from me. I hope you're happy. I stared at it for a long time before replying. Me? No, Emily. You did this to yourself. I blocked her number. My mother still tried to plead her case, insisting I should make amends. That family is family, but I knew better. Blood doesn't mean loyalty, and I wasn't about to let someone who tried to destroy my life back in. Emily was finally out of my life, and for the first time, I felt free.